What's up, everybody? It's Ty the Bourbon Guy, and welcome back to another whiskey review. Today, we're going to finally take a look at Elijah Craig C923. This is the barrel proof of Elijah Craig, right? And this is one that there's been a lot of these bottles lately that have just been hyped to the moon. And for me particularly, when I review something or when I'm interested in a whiskey or just trying to give an opinion on it, when the more something is hyped, the more I don't want to go in that direction. So I feel like I'm a little bit more critical on whiskeys like that. And, you know, the best way to really come up with a true opinion is to spend some time with this and see what my thoughts actually are. So that's what we're going to do today. Elijah Craig Barrel Proof Batch C923. This one is 13 years, 7 months, I believe. This is also 133 proof. So, you know, a few batches ago, I guess, Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, they took the 12-year age statement off and started putting separate ages on the bottles. Doesn't really necessarily mean that it's going to go younger when they do that, because 12 years just could have been the youngest whiskey used, you know, that type of situation. But it could have had older juice in it. And I say juice, I actually hate when people say juice, but you get the idea. And it just, we kind of felt like we didn't really know where that was going to go. And then they went below 12 years. And I think a lot of people got turned off by that. So for me, I don't necessarily harp on that too much. You're still, you know, dealing with a hopefully 10 plus year product. I do think that the age statement is very important just in general for transparency purposes. But when they're putting together a blend or a batch or whatever it may be, that may be the best that's available at that time or whatever the case is. So if it's between them putting out a younger product just so that they can get this next one ready of this 13 years, then by all means, I mean, whatever you have to do or whatever they feel like is ready doesn't mean that they're going to hit every single time, but it also doesn't mean that I have to necessarily hate a product before I even try it just because it's younger. So I still think it's still worth the try in general. These are all very good. And I think if you're new to whiskey, you'll hear probably a lot of people mention different batches. And this isn't the only whiskey that's like that, but people kind of harp on certain batches, or that one's not good, this one's not good, whatever. When it comes to Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, they are all good. At the end of the day, if you're new to this and maybe you've never had a bottle of Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, or maybe you've only had one or something like that, any batch you ever find, buy it. It's still going to be relatively good. It may be, you know, different batch to batch, sure. But I think this kind of falls in that category. And there's a few others that I can think of that, you know, we kind of just harp on the batches. But I think if you're, you know, relatively new, or you're just trying to understand whiskey right now or whatever it is, anyone you see, buy it. It's going to be good. So today we're going to figure out how good though. So let's see what this one does on the nose. So I think there's a lot of bourbons, especially lately for some reason, that I get this sweet oak. I say for some reason, they're aged in oak, duh. But I don't know, it's just like a sweetness. Sometimes it can be like a bitter oak or something like that. But lately, everyone I feel like I've reviewed or tried or whatever, it's that sweet oak is there. This particular one has vanilla. It's like this rich vanilla. It's almost just like, you can almost smell the depth there. Like it feels like there's going to be a lot of flavors going on here in terms of just the depth of it and the concentration of flavor or whatever you want to call it. And to me, there's also this like peppery note. It's almost like a black pepper, but not to where it's too spicy. I think it just balances out that sweetness on the nose at least. So let's see what it does on the palate. Cheers. I think the first thing that I notice is that this is 133 proof. You know, you take that initial sip and it's going to burn, especially if it's your first whiskey of the day or whatever it may be. But remember, with higher proof, especially, and really pretty much any bourbon, especially if you're new to it, some of the lower proofs might be in that same category. But just remember that initial, you're going to get that burn. Your mouth's going to kind of get numb to it. Your body's going to get used to it. And then after that, that second sip, I think, is where you get more of that flavor. So for me, and it could be the proof again, but that spice is still there, that black pepper, especially on the finish. The sweet oak and the vanilla come through, but then it almost transitions into like a honey sweetness or those floral notes just slightly. But yeah, let's keep exploring this one. I think what stands out to me the most is the richness, just the viscosity, the mouthfeel, the depth of flavor that's here. Like I said, it's just rich, and then that sweetness evolves, I guess, from that honey. We're still hanging out in the sweet side, but it's like for me, like a candy sweetness, almost like we're going in that type of direction when it comes to sweetness. It's also like buttery, and again, I mean that in terms of mouthfeel, not like it tastes like butter, but just that butteriness. Is that a word? Butteriness? I feel like I ask if things are words in a lot of my videos, but I just make up stuff as I go. And probably the more whiskey I have, the more words I'm going to make up. But that butter mouthfeel just feels oily. It feels viscous. It's rich. I don't know how many words I need to keep repeating, but that's what I get out of this whiskey. The proof on this, and I'm sure it's the age too, but the proof to me feels like it's helping those flavors carry through. It feels like it's helping those flavors have depth to where I feel like if I were to add water, it would actually take away from that mouthfeel in this particular instance. And that's why I'm enjoying this whiskey, is because of that depth and because of that viscosity and that mouthfeel. And I feel like I don't necessarily want to take away from that experience. I think in all cases, you have to think about what it is that you're trying to accomplish when you drink whiskey. So if you're just trying to explore the whiskey itself, and neat is probably the best way to do that, because you can really pick out what the distiller tastes as they were going through their processes. If you're just pouring something up to, either friends are over and you're just hanging out, and maybe that's a cocktail, maybe that's on a rock, and you're just watching TV and you're not really in the mode of like analyzing every whiskey you got and pick out all these different flavors, I can see that too. I'm sure this is still going to be a fantastic bottle. And the ice might help in that case, I would imagine. Cool it down a little bit from that 133 proof. But I think it's all in what you choose to do and how you choose to enjoy a whiskey. And don't let anybody tell you what the right way is. We all know the best way to enjoy it is however you decide. You bought it. So the finish is long on this, and there's that honey still hangs around for me personally. Being curious about the water, I did go ahead and try it with water, and I feel like you almost get like a campfire note in there. And I'm sure that's just maybe the char type of thing from the barrel. Nothing heavy, smoke, nothing like that. Just a campfire feel, maybe. But I definitely, as I kind of thought that it would be better for me personally without water, I would stick to that. Now that I've tried it with water, I would go ahead and say I prefer it neat. So I would say this batch reminds me of the very first batch I ever had of Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. I can't even remember which one it was. It might have been something from 2017, maybe. I don't know. I can't remember. Somewhere 17, 18, maybe range. And when I had it, I bought a bottle. I'd heard about it and, whatever. I bought a bottle. I went home and I cracked it open. And the second I tried it, it hit me with that candy sweetness, and it had the depth of flavor. It had everything I was looking for, so much so that I got right back in the car and went back up to the store and bought whatever else they had left. And I thought at that time, this is the best whiskey I've ever had. This bottle reminds me of that. It reminds me of that experience, of that candy sweetness, the sweet oak, the depth of flavor. Everything is there for me. That the balance is there, the complexity is there, everything is there as it was prior. And I hate to say it because I hate buying into the hype on a lot of things. Like I said, I go against the grain, pun intended, on a lot of things. And when people go left, I want to go right. And I can't. I have to go with the people on this one. I have to go left. It just is. It does live up to the hype. It is that good of a whiskey. It is one that I bet if it's blinded in some, bigger names or, more expensive bottles or whatever, I bet it would hang. I could see this definitely hanging in there with some of those allocated items that people, pay crazy prices for or hunt or whatever. I can see it. I definitely understand why this was the whiskey of the year for a lot of people last year. I get it. And with that being said, I'm going to rate it a 95 out of 100. This will be, for me, so far, this is the highest rating I've ever given a whiskey, and I think it deserves it. I think that the experience that this brings, the uniqueness of the fact that this is a batch product that to me really does vary batch to batch. Again, like I said before, they're all still good, but there is some variation between batch to batch. This one is very good, and I can't argue with it. It is what it is. Instead of arguing with it, I'm just going to sit back and enjoy it. This is one that I would love to, as much as I would love to enjoy it by myself, I could easily see when people come over and they want something really good, using this one and just saying, man, try this, that sort of thing. So to me, whiskeys have their different places, and there's different reasons as to why I may pull a bottle out and enjoy it. But with how good this is, I would really love for other people that enjoy whiskey that maybe couldn't find this bottle or something like that, or heard about the hype but didn't want to spend the money on it, something like that. I would love to share this bottle with them and go that route. So I think that's how I'm going to use this. Again, this whiskey, regardless of a batch, I would say, if you are a beginner and you are looking for Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, the first thing I'd say is if you can't find it, there are still plenty of options that are available that are amazing as well. That's the first thing I'll say. The second thing, if you are a beginner or whether you're into it or whatever the case is, you see an Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, just buy them. I mean, they've shown us the quality that they bring. We understand this now, right? Like, just go with it. And I know the ages are various ages or whatever it may be. Heaven Hill at the end of the day still has very good whiskey, and this one, again, this particular batch, the best one I think I've had, and I would love to go back. I think I still have some of the original that I had, but I don't know. I'd have to go back and look. If I do, I would love to try these side by side and just see how similar they are, or maybe it's just how I remember it, and maybe it wasn't as good, or maybe that one has had so much time to open up that I don't know. I'd have to go back and really analyze it. But all that nerding aside, it's still a good batch, still a good bottle. Regardless of the years, you see it, you buy it. It's definitely one of those cases. If you do come across a C, I wouldn't get caught up in the laser codes and all the other crap that's going around. It's good. Enjoy it and just buy it. I have heard people say that they maybe didn't enjoy their batch as much. Again, I know people have blinded it and have come up with that. So I'm not saying that it's not a real thing. But again, I think it's just perspective, right? Like, one batch to another, whatever. But this whiskey compared to other whiskeys, still elite. So I've rambled on enough. You've heard me talk enough. Go enjoy your whiskey. If you have this one, pour some up and maybe watch the review back with me or whatever the case is. But I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much to everybody subscribed. It means the world to me. Thank you for all the support you always give me. And I'll see you in the next review. Cheers.